Hi, I'm Boria Sax. I look more or less like this. I'm speaking to you from my home on a very cold night in early January. Without more ado, I would like to read for you a few odd paragraphs from the chapter entitled Almost Human in my book, The Mythical Zoo. The distinction between human and animal is by no means universal to all cultures. Many languages, such as classical Chinese, have no equivalent of our Western concept of animal. The closest thing to the concept of human among the Chewang, who live in the forests of Malaysia, is a continually shifting sense of affinity which may at times include trees or insects, while excluding some men and women. And even when such a distinction is present, it is not necessarily conceived in ways that are familiar to us. The Karen people of New Guinea regard the cassowary, a large flightless bird, as human. Many indigenous people, as well as quite a few European royal and noble families, trace their genealogies to animals such as bears in myths. Modern Western culture is probably unique in the central role it accords to the distinction between civilization and nature, as well as to subsidiary distinctions such as the one between people and animals. But even in the Occident, that differentiation has never been stable or unambiguous. For most of history, people have distinguished between human beings and apes at least as much by habitat as by appearance or biology. Human beings live in houses, often in urban centers or the countryside, while apes live in trees. Folklore also makes the forest home to fairies, elves, and other nature spirits, which are often given simian features such as long arms and profuse body hair. In the early 6th century BCE, the Carthaginian navigator Hanno led an enormous expedition down the west coast of Africa. According to his account of the voyage, he and his companions sighted a huge mountain called the Chariot of the Gods. They confronted wild men and women covered with hair, which threw stones at them and climbed adroitly upon the slopes. Ever since then, people have speculated about whether the wild men were people dressed in animal skins, chimpanzees, baboons, or, most likely, gorillas. Similar rumors of wild men have continued to circulate ever since, as mariners in distant lands reported seeing men with the heads of dogs, the feet of goats, their faces on their chests, and many creatures just as strange. Stories of hairy wild men with clubs were told around the fire and sometimes acted out in medieval pageants. Of all animals, The bear is probably the one that most clearly resembles human beings in appearance. Even apes cannot stand fully upright and only walk with difficulty. The bear, moreover, can run on two legs almost as well as a human. Like a person, a bear looks straight ahead, but the expressions of bears are not easy for us to read. Often, the wide eyes of a bear suggest perplexity, making it appear that the bear is a human being whose form has been mysteriously altered. Bears, however, are generally far larger and stronger than people, so they could easily be taken for giants. In the Romantic period of the 18th and 19th centuries, a revolt against the constraints of civilization led to the celebration of wild animals. Early explorers were amazed by the size of beaver lodges in the New World. Influenced by tales of Native Americans, they brought back to Europe fantastic stories of a highly sophisticated beaver society. Beavers were said to build with mortar, using their tails as trowels, and have a system of parliamentary law. By the 18th century, the beaver was regularly mentioned along with the elephant, ape, dog, and dolphin as perhaps the most intelligent animal after man. Human attitudes towards pigs cover an enormous range, but they are consistent in one way. We almost always perceive pigs as being very close to the earth. They are indispensable in looking for truffles in southern France, since their ability to smell things beneath the soil exceeds even that of dogs. They also sometimes take baths in mud to escape the heat. If we see earth as a prison of the spirit, we are likely to hate pigs. If we long for contact with the earth, we may love them. For better or worse, they represent the joys and limitations of the flesh. The pig is holy, yet perfectly at home in hell. The pig is gentle, yet harbors such wildness that even devils are terrified of it. The pig is revered, hated, loved, feared, admired, exploited, laughed at, and regarded as a friend. It is as if the pig were the entire animal kingdom in a single form. And what is a human being? There are so many answers to that question, I could write an entire book about them. But, come to think of it, I just did, and you are reading that very book now. Every section is a possible answer to the question. Human beings are animals, sure, but not just one kind of animal. We are spiders, elephants, ravens, octopuses, butterflies. In writing about animals, people inevitably begin to merge human and bestial identities, anthropomorphically projecting our qualities, while simultaneously laying claim to theirs. That is why descriptions of animals, no matter what the aspiration of the author, begin to sound very dated after less than a century. In most cases, one can learn at least as much about the writer and the culture of his era from such descriptions as one can about the animals themselves. Literature about animals is relatively less self-conscious and, for that reason, more revealing than writing directly about human beings. We are less defensive. Our egotism and paranoia, while present often enough, are less elaborately concealed. Animals always figure very prominently in the symbols that express human identity, from heraldic crests to the names of sports teams. In the last half-century or so, there has been an increased awareness of the mutual dependence between human beings and the natural environment. We poetically construct our identities as human beings largely through reciprocal relationships with animals. They provide us with essential points of reference, as well as illustrations of the qualities we may choose to emulate or to avoid in ourselves. Any major change in our relationships with animals, individual or collective, reverberates profoundly in our character as human beings in ways that go far beyond immediately pragmatic concerns. When a species becomes extinct, something perishes in the human soul as well. Continued in the book, and thank you very much for listening.